Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's very special edition of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends. And indeed, I brought some friends with me. King David will be joining us shortly. 98% right, King David. But we have Crispy Bomb joining us, who's here. Crispy Bomb, good afternoon, sir. We have a very, very spicy topic to get into. The hashtag boycott Bungie is wreaking havoc on the interwebs, and I will continue to march to that drum because after what happened yesterday and the additional information that was brought to us via Paul Tassi is nothing short of egregious on a level that I have never seen before. Up here is King Crocs himself. King, we'll get to you in a hot second. Crispy Bomb, welcome, sir. I know you're a union guy. You are a for the people kind of podcaster, and more importantly, human being. What happened at Bungie is just damn right disgraceful.
Yeah, read a lot of the article, a lot of stuff. I always appreciate you, Boom, because you drop a lot of stuff that I don't see, and it's one of those things. Like, we're gonna look at this as being people that work and work hard, and it really is. It sucks, and it's not something that you want to see. Keep in mind that this is Bungie themselves doing. I mean, the budget comes down from Sony, so and we're going to get into it. I'm sure Boom's ready to roll with all of the tidbits that everyone should hear, because at the end of the day, this is not looking good, and I'll just leave it at that.
No, it is not. And King David, I think
sir.
you, sir, you're going to have to change your name to at least 99% right at the time, because you called Rome was burning months ago. And we see what's happening to SIE across the board. They are cutting members of studios left, right, and center. And Chris, you brought up a great point. Ultimately, the budget comes the way of Sony because they own Bungie. So Pete Parsons, meets with the head of Sony, and he says he's told, well, you got to cut X, Y, and Z. He goes in. And we're gonna break down exactly how Pete Parsons treated his employees, and like I said, when you look, King, at his tweet when the story broke about how we're losing all these employees and we're so sorry to see them go, and what they is a load of what. But King, how you feeling, brother? Welcome back, sir.
I'm fantastic. It is so good to be back with Boom. You don't know, guys. Listen, I try to make this show all the time. Boom reaches out to me, and my work schedule is kind of hectic. But the fact of the matter is, I called it not months ago. I called it years ago. That Rome was burning. The fact is, Sony hasn't been putting out the quality of games and doing things right by their studios for a long time. This is nothing, They did the same thing when they were consolidating in Europe. They did the same thing when they were consolidating in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved their headquarters to Europe. That I knew that turn rubbed the Japanese fan base a little raw.
Yeah, it did.
And when they changed the controller scheme with the PlayStation 5 from what was it, the box and the X button, and they switched that around. That was kind of a smack in the face with them, that they were on to a whole different greener pastures. And the EU has been really good to them. This stuff that is going on with Bungie was predicted by me, and I'm gonna stay 92%. 98% right, and leave me that 2% margin of error, because every once and again, every rare full moon,
every
I get it,
hiccup, if you will.
Yeah, I get it wrong. But I called this, and we're going to get into this, but I called this specifically because I know certain things that's going on over there, specifically with Bungie themselves. And we'll get into that in a few.
Okay, so folks, listen. The reason why I'm doing the extra show today, obviously, I think I put it out there already on the socials because I didn't want people to be broadside by it. Tonight, I'm not having a live show because it's Mrs. Boom's birthday. So we're gonna have dinner. We're gonna go out. We're gonna.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you very much, King and Chris. We appreciate that. And we're just gonna take the night off and celebrate her. Friday morning's breakfast at Boom is going to be a special one, folks, because we are giving away $500 worth of gift cards for the 4th annual Mrs. Boom's birthday bash. That's right. Her birthday, you folks get the prizes, 10 $50 gift cards. And even if you win and you're outside of the Americas, we will, of course, send you your prize as well. We're proud. One of the few podcasts that actually that does that because, again, it's, whatever denominational change, if your monies are worth more, we cover that. Any transfer fees, we cover it. You pay nothing. You win, you pay nothing. That's the way it works. So listen, this was reported widely. Jason Schreier reported on it. You saw Tom Henderson, Tom from The Verge. Everyone was reporting on this. But I want to do the big shout out to Paul Tassi. Paul and I've never met Paul. I've had conversations with him, on Twitter. I've never had him in a DM or anything. I like Paul's work. I don't always agree with his takes. And he knows that because we've talked about it. But I respect him as a journalist. And I want to give him a proper shout out because he has been on this story since it broke. And everything I'm using today is all from Paul Tassi. Now, yesterday, one of the first tweets that came out of this shenanigans, if you will, it stated this: the layoff decisions came directly from Bungie management and not Sony. This is not about Sony replacing Bungie employees with their own people. And that is, in fact, true. But the ultimate decision of cutting budget came from Sony because, Sony owns Bungie. He went on to say many employee benefits, though not health insurance, only last until the end of the month if you're let go. Laying off people on the 30th means a single additional day of coverage, which is disgusting. And he finished it off by saying many employees had unvested shares as a result of the Sony purchase. These shares would be received based on staying with the company for a certain number of years following the sale. But, and this is where we get to the disgustingness of it all, those shares will revert to Bungie if you leave, even if you are fired, which is what is happening right now to many of those that are currently affected by this. That, to me, is the most disgusting thing you could possibly do to your employees. You're taking your stock back. You're getting rid of them before it matures, so you get ownership of it. Like, are you serious? But if you think that is where it ends, folks, this is why the hashtag boycott Bungie needs to be put in everyone's tweets moving forward. Listen to this shit. Many Bungie employees that were fired found out the morning when they were locked out of their services, logins, and email access for work. Others, who instead found out in meetings, were told not to tell team members themselves, as the teams would be told by other means. And this is where it gets disgusting even further. Many employees at Bungie were unable to say goodbye or exchange contacts. And finally, many team managers were not told at all about who on their team was being laid off and only found out as it happened. But again, folks, you think you think this is a turd Sunday? Well, I got some more for you. I got some more for you right here because I'm going to bring it up, and let me do that right now. Okay, this is again coming the way of Paul Tassi. He goes on to say, now he has this information. He put this out. This is obviously, he got this information from a contact of his within IGN. So, of course, I will credit IGN for this information. And again, this comes the way of Paul Tassi. Pete Parsons, and this is the CEO of Bungie, said, and I don't know if this was publicly in an email, I don't know how they got the information, but this is out there on the socials for everyone to read and see. He said, King, the right people had been kept for Destiny 2. I guess what he's trying to say is that everyone that they got rid of were not good enough to work on Destiny 2. Well, in this additional piece of information, employees told Pete Parson player sentiment was at an all-time low. Employees, ones that were probably let go, begged for changes to get the players back. The final shape pre-orders are lower than expected, and many were upset about Bungie's big cost at their new headquarters. But King, something was just put in our DM, and I believe it was Eli that did it. According to Destiny Bullet, which obviously is a big time Destiny presence on X or Twitter. Apparently, Destiny 2 players are mass refunding the final shape pre-orders after the Bungie layoffs and delayed release. Look, I don't know. I mean, I have other pieces of context to keep this story rolling, and we're talking about this, but King, this is a wider problem happening at PlayStation. PlayStation, you called it, you've been saying it, they are burning from within inside. I had a whole show to talk about it a couple of weeks ago, but what happened at Bungie is nothing short of deplorable. How they treated their employees. I don't know how they come back from this. I don't know if they could potentially give the game away for free and no one would give a flying hoot. Let's get your hot take on this.
I believe that gamers themselves are overinflating certain things as gamers. All right, now let's talk about the principal people that's involved. The principal people that's involved is the workers that were working at Bungie that was reassured that after the purchase with Sony that nothing would happen to their jobs. That is egregious within itself, okay? Because they haven't been there long enough to even get the to warm the seat in their chairs, let alone work on projects that deserve their attention. How can you work on projects that deserve your attention when you have 10 games of service that you must overlook and you have to sit there and be a babysitter for factions that Connie and some of the other employees that was at Sony did not feel that was the direction that the company needed to go in? If that's not your identity, it's like, trying in midstream to become a running back when you've been a wide receiver your whole life. Mm-hmm. This is what Sony is trying to do. Now, I've been telling people for a long time, Sony is a copycat company, and what they do is they see what other companies are doing, they see whatever is emulated successfully, and then they go out and form action. Microsoft and other companies have been successfully doing multiplayer games across the board. And Sony has looked over and seen the revenue streams coming from these multiplayer games that have reoccurring revenue, and they wanted a piece of that pie. When Phil said, and that's Phil Dominus Maximus Aurelius Spencer, said long time ago that the single player genre is a dying genre and it needs to be reawoken, people laughed at him because they said that you can't make it, that's why it's dead. No, when Sean Layden said it, Sean Layden was let out the door of the building. Sony has a bigger systemic problem within the company, and it lacks empathy for their employees. Employees that have been there for, 30 plus years. Jim messed up. Jim messed up real bad. Jim had a deal on the table, and Jim did not take the deal. Jim has seen the door. Okay? Connie didn't fall in line. Connie has been shown the door. Sean wasn't on the same thing. Sean has been shown the door. You can go on and on. Jack Trenton, you can go on and on for the way that they have treated their employees deplorably. Okay, so don't sit here and think that it's just a Bungie thing. No, Bungie is moving to the beat of the lender, right? Because right now, Sony does not own them. You don't own them when you go in there with a credit card. And so it came out that they did not buy with a debit card. They purchased with a credit card. And they did not put the full amount. They put the base minimum that they needed to get Bungie. But I told people that Bungie would not stick around because they are overworked, underpaid, and understaffed for the stuff that they needed them to do. So now you're seeing cutbacks. Why? Across the boards, from Gran Turismo to Horizon, to the PlayStation VR 2, to the launch of the console, to a lot of these games have not lived up to their numbers. They even went and told you that they're going to raise the price on the services, the PlayStation Plus services at $40. Where the hell did you come with that number? That number is half the price of a brand new game. but you're raising it to $40 and you're not putting day and date in there because that is not sustainable for a Sony product. You're devaluing the product, and you have your fan base believing these lies. You tout large numbers, but now you're having reduction across the board. This is not just happening to Bungie. This is happening to Fire Sprite. This is happening to all their staff. Don't forget Naughty Dog. Do not forget a lot of the developers inside the Sony stable have seen mass reductions across the board. All right, and this is what happens when you cannot produce quality games that have a sustainable income on your platform. There was definite fear when ABK deal was going through, and Jim was not lying when he said that they can't produce anything of that caliber and they are dependent upon that money. Now that money is being gone to Microsoft, and they're scrambling. I see people in my DMs. I see people on Twitter. I see people on other forms of social media, and I know people in the know want Sony to reverse their course on the stance of going to games of service. That would be catastrophic, to say the least. That will bring about the end of Sony. Like I said, they were becoming an app anyway, a whole lot faster than I predicted. It would not be the 10 years of this generation cycle. It would happen in less than 6 years, because that means the games that you do have in the pipeline, you're canceling them and you're starting off from scratch. You cannot do that. That is not sustainable. They must see the cost. This is Jim's vision. So from now on, you will see what Sony is about from here, from Foam Stars on. You would see what's going on. And you guys, I saw y'all had the beta out of Foam Stars. Now, one of you guys put up the videos of Foam Stars. Now, one of you guys talked about Foam Stars. Now, one of you guys pushed Foam Stars. Now, one of you guys had streams of Foam Stars. If you want Sony to survive, you guys must do the work. I can't, as an Xbox guy, buy a VR, buy a portable, buy a PlayStation 5, buy Spider-Man, buy all these games and support when you guys don't. You guys want them to survive? Well, stop tweeting and get out there and help them survive, because Bungie would not be going through all this, because when y'all was touting they brought Bungie, none of y'all bought Final Shape. I got Final Shape. Do you got Final Shape? Do you play Destiny? Are you supporting them? So stop with the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is at an all-time high. You're worrying about the developers, but you are not supporting them at all. Not one time do I see any of y'all talking about Destiny. Y'all said it was a dead franchise, right? Well, now it's officially going to be dead because you guys did not support. And I'm watching each and every last one of you. That's J-Dub, that's Porter Rock, that's all you guys that's out there on the front line. You're not holding the line for Sony. We held the line for Microsoft until they got their stuff together. Get out there and hold the line.
King, I don't know if I hate that. I hate to be crispy, because the follow up that is just I don't even know. You should take over the show. This is crazy. First of all, he dropped it like it was so hot that it's it's nuclear. I don't know what else to say. People, supposedly holding the line for Sony. And that's the other thing, King. How long have you and I been talking about? People clown us for being Xbox dudes, but don't you and I always buy the PlayStation exclusives?
Yeah, but they say that we need to buy it because we have no games.
Well, that's true. That is true. There are no games on Xbox. At least, I'm only playing 7 right now, but it's fine.
Yeah. Right.
Look, Sony is in trouble. They have no direction. They have no leader. They are reversing course supposedly, and you know what came out today, King? You're gonna love this, and I'm gonna pass the mic over to Crispy Bomb right now. There's a new rumor that that God of War DLC for Ragnarok was going to be announced at the Game Awards. That came out this morning, but apparently it's going to have some content added to it so they can sell it as a $70 additional on its own content.
I know about that.
And that, again, it's just gross. Listen, Ragnarok was fantastic.
Morales is going to be like Miles Morales.
It's going to be like Miles Morales. In fact, that's what the article said it was going to be like, literally like Miles. And I loved Miles Morales. I'm taking nothing away from that game. I loved it, but it was ultimately just an add-on. Now, before we bring in Crispy, I want to shout out a few people because we have a new member. Hitman has joined the Double Barrel Gaming membership. So thank you so much for Hitman. He also, he has gifted, ladies and gentlemen, 10 Double Barrel Gaming memberships. Dude, that is crazy generous of you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate the generosity. Gerald Mack, good friend, one of the graybeards, if you will, drops an outstanding $10 super chat and says, question for the panel. We know that gaming is a very tricky industry. Do any of you believe that there is enough time for PlayStation to make any significant moves to stop the bleeding? King, what do you think about that?
No.
Me either.
No,
that's how
you got to stay the course. When Microsoft had to stay the course, it hurt.
Yeah,
you know, it hurt bad because they didn't have games. What was that? 2022. They didn't have any games out 2022. You saw what state Halo Infinite launched in. You saw what Starfield was going to launch in. Had Todd released that game early. No, you have to stay the course. The problem is we all know financially Sony cannot stay the course. This is why I've always told you guys that they're going to become an app. It has nothing to do with the fact that they lack quality. It has the fact that they lack funds.
Wow. You know what? You're absolutely right. They are going to become potentially. I'll put it to this way. You know, it's funny. I was talking with Keasante, as we do almost every day, and you know, you kind of wonder if Microsoft, who's in third place, had this kind of implosion in a 3-week period. I mean, you got to remember, this started with this downfall or this downward spiral, if you will, has started with Jim Ryan, and it has gotten worse. And real quick, folks, Hitman has gifted. This is just insane. I don't even know what to say, Hitman, but thank you. 30 additional.
That's what's
30
up.
additions for a total, folks,
Salute.
of 40 channel memberships. If you get one of these things, please, by all means, hit this man up, pun intended, Hitman, and thank him. That is wow, dude. That is incredibly kind. I don't really have the words other than to say thank you. That is very generous of you. King, we're going to come back to you in a second because I want to continue this talk of Bungie and Sony, because obviously Sony owns Bungie. For how much longer, I don't know. We know that they've got out of working for Microsoft. They got out of working for Activision. It looks like they're going to be getting out of working for PlayStation and potentially sell their wares somewhere else. But I want to hear from Crispy Bomb, because Crispy, you are a for the people kind of a guy. You put your heart on your sleeve, and you're a union guy. You are a human. Like we talk about the human element in gaming. Like a lot of us forget that humans actually, like human beings, I don't know, make games, and they have feelings, and they get tired, and they get sick, and they get overworked, just like you, just like me, except they do it for gaming. And what happened here, and what is continuing, we're getting more information as the day progresses. I would imagine that even by Friday, we're going to have some additional egregious information that is going to make you, I'm going to put it this way, I wouldn't take anything free from Bungie at this point, let alone spend $1 to support that studio after this. Let's get your raw and uncut take on this, Crispy Bomb.
Well, first off, one of the things that you pointed out is, from Paul Tassi is the shares, and you look at somebody like, the composer Salvatore, and you look at him, and you wonder how many shares he would actually have and how they just saved a bunch of money by throwing that dude to the curb. And that is just, I have 16 years at my job, and I'm kind of in the same situation in a way because of a merger. Okay. And there is nothing that can be done if they decided, hey, you're gone after 16 years. And you look at people like that, I wonder how much tenure these 100 people have. I really do, because it's almost like, hey, like those shares revert back. That's revenue in our pocket for a period of time. But how mastermind, evil, corporate thought process that is it not? Like, it's a little telling. And to go off of King's point, what have I been saying? And I'm not you guys who support Sony and buy their games. I got a PS4 that's sitting in the basement. Ain't nobody got no interest into it. What have I been saying? Bring me a multiplayer exclusive. What were they trying to do? They were getting down that route. As much as Jim has lied and cried and everything else, the one thing I said is this not a bad thought process to bring out some gas games. Do I think that they went to an extreme? Yes. But the thought process was a little behind, actually a lot behind Microsoft, but it was there. I mean, here's a prime example, and goes off of King as well. Look at what Grounded has become.
Dude, did you see the announcement today? They're adding a Forge mode to Grounded. Like, think about that. You're going to be able to make your own levels. They literally just announced that, Crispy.
That's the game that everybody laughed at.
Everybody laughed. Now, let's be fair here. Like, there was like a Bleeding Edge as well, which didn't do well. But this is where we talk as Xbox fans and say, allow innovation. Allow people to make something that they're passionate about. This is what Phil constantly says. And a lot of times, even Xbox guys be like, dude, like, you're letting them do whatever they want. But you know what? Those failures, those hurt more if it's on you and not Phil saying, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things. The next game is probably going to be better. And we laugh at those facts, but they are there. Sony is hurting. We have been telling you for years, they don't have a sustainable revenue. Sony used to make the Walkman, and their TVs used to be like the best thing ever and stuff like that. These facts are gone. They are relying on PlayStation proper to make them sustainable revenue. How do you have sustainable revenue when you have a one and done that I've seen people beat in a weekend? It's not going to be there. You don't have no thoughts of DLC plans. Instead, you take DLCs that are supposed to be DLCs to support the game, like God of War Ragnarok, and say, I'm going to charge you another $70 possibly. It doesn't work. The consumers, especially nowadays, more than ever, care about their wallet. And Sony continues to rake them over the coals. And not only that, they're now showing their head and saying, hey, cut your budget. Well, the most controllable thing is the people that you hire and fire. Okay, that's money in your pocket or out of your pocket. So that's what they did. But that's old school. And this is where you go and say, everybody dogs on Microsoft. But guess what? Now Activision Blizzard, they're already starting the union talks. Okay, unions matter for these people because at the end of the day, when you have a union backing you as one individual, you have a more powerful stance on the fact that you can't fire me like that. You can't do this to me. You have 20 years in a company and you get bought out by another company. Well, I do have a leg to stand on because I'm part of a union now and we'll all walk out on you. This is called taking these people that do the actual work and giving them a leg to stand on. And this is what Sony's like, you guys, and you got people like Fire Sprite, the dudes are just leaving. They
lost 100 employees, brother, at Fire Sprite since the merger.
They're just like, you know what? And the one thing you could say is all I see is a lot of devs at Microsoft hiring. And who knows how far this union thing will go. Yeah. Because as we talked in the green room, I said, look, one part of the company's union, but that allows those union heads to go into these other studios and say, do you want to be union or not? Because there's generally clauses and all these other things. No, you can't do that if there's no part of the company that's union. Now this is opening up developers being able to have a voice and saying, no, enough's enough. And we look at how Sony has treated their IPs. it has become regurgitative, and we've experienced it with how many Gears, how many Halos, how many this and how many that. You know what I mean? Forzas and everything else. We experienced it, but you have to see what they do with these games. They continue to bring out DLCs. They find ways to bring revenue to the company themselves, because at the end of the day, these are companies and they have to make money. And if they don't, then there's going to be turmoil like this. And this is becoming completely apparent. And this all started with the ABK deal closing. It really did. And it's almost like, can you just like put a Band-Aid on and just stop the bleeding, Sony? Like,
no.
They just continue to let it keep coming. I mean, it's been weeks now. Like, there's something going on that, I mean, concerns me as a gamer, because at the end of the day, all I want is competition. And finally, Xbox decides to compete, and now it looks like Sony's ready to fold under themselves, and it's concerning for me. And you look at Nintendo, you don't hear stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could say whatever you want about Nintendo, but I don't hear stuff like this. Maybe they're just better at not letting it be out there. But personally, I think they allow what they have to be great, and they continue to use that different peripheral that they have and use it to their advantage. And that's something that they have. And I feel like, you know, PSVR 2, like, yeah, you see a little Gran Turismo update. Like, that's good. Okay, for the people that have that, please support them. I mean, it was a lot of money for that thing. You know what I mean? Like, they need to get back to the consumers and also the people that work there. And I think if they do that, it is a start to bring them back from where they're at right now, which is very concerning for me.
Well, look, King.
Yes.
J-Rock in the chat. He says he has a question for the panel for both you and Crispy. He says, okay, what was PlayStation's roadmap for 2022, 2023, and 2024 if games like Gran Turismo 7, Horizon, and Ragnarok weren't delayed until 2022? That's a phenomenal question.
Well, the fact of the matter, J-Rock, and you and I know we keep a close eye on everything that goes on. We keep receipts, and we don't, forget exactly what's happening. Sony was in a unique position. When Jim's first spoke pre-COVID, they believe in generations. They did, until they had to hold off because their games are being affected by the COVID situation. Yep. So they extended the generation, and they came out and told them for 4 or 5 years we'll be doing this. We'll be supporting the PlayStation 4. And people was like, oh, Hem the hard got upset, but the company needed to do that because they had games that were ready to go. That was on a PlayStation 4 that they can up-res and put it on a PlayStation 5 and could be cross-platform. That was their strategy, J-Rock. Their strategy was that. All right. And then take the existing assets that you do have, like with Spider-Man. Spider-Man came out in 2018.
2018.
I believe in 2020 or 2021, the remaster came out. And the remaster came out because they took the assets of the first one, they up-resed it and brute forced it to look a whole lot better, right? And they changed it. The main character, I swear to God, if you look at it, he looks like a young Jim Ryan. I hate that guy. Hate the character. I hate the face. I like the original Spider-Man's face. But this was the thought process. Take the older games that we do have and up-res them, then we can resell them. All right? So this is where you got to the remake. Right. And remaster, remake is so you got to the remaster of these games, and they thought that will hold them for a while. And Jim came up with the idea of games as services. Now, Chris Baum said something that we don't hear this stuff with Nintendo. My son brought this up to me the other day, and he's very astute. He's a very, very smart kid. Now, I don't say it because he's my kid. I just say that because he is. We have different conversations. And he said, Dad, did you know that when Nintendo messed up with the Wii U, the president at the time, instead of taking his bonus at the end at that year, he cut his salary in half so they didn't have to lose employees?
Wow.
Random conversation.
All right. He's sharp as a tack because I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I remember when he did that. So Christopher Vaughn, to your point, this is the reason why we don't hear stuff like that, because they happen to respect and honor the people that are doing the work. Now, to Sony, we had David Jaffe on this Sunday on ILP.
Great show, by the way. He was David Jaffe, and he let it loose.
I love that guy. I always did. I love him because he comes from an era where, you know, I grew up in. You know, he formulated my gaming love. So, but he said something that was very, very poignant. Whew. He had no contract. He had no contract.
Wow.
So the fact of the matter is, if you have no contract, they can do with you as they will. Right? We're talking about the ABK deal. In the beginning, it was all about unions. Y'all didn't understand why Microsoft was pairing and partnering up with the unions and getting the unions to side with them. This is a problem that's in the industry as a whole.
Yep.
And Microsoft chose to stand on the side of the employees and the people. I have friends that work at Microsoft, former and current workers at Microsoft. Not one time have they told me when they left Microsoft or whatever happened, were they left in a lurch. Not one time. They said the time was there, was good. I decided to do some other stuff. And you know, they gave me the opportunity to switch over to another division, whatever. But the case of the fact is that the employees is treated with a reverence. And I don't see that same reverence here. When you get a union and your union is involved, your union will support you. I've been on the other end as an employee that I needed a union backing, and they weren't able to do with me as they will because I was part of a union. My union rep was there. We went through all the facts. And then when all the facts came out, the company had to eat that and swallow that. Oh, he didn't? Oh, okay. So, oh, yeah. Now, for my emotional distress, I need to see a therapist. I need to get and all this stuff is wonderful. But at the end of the day, a union is there to give you a voice in the voiceless land. And Sony looks like the voiceless land. That fight that Jim was putting on wasn't a fight so much just for the video games that y'all are thinking about. The fight is, as the leader, so-called, and these in quotations because Nintendo's the actual leader, as the leader of the gaming space, number one in sales, you don't have unions, you are next. How is number three going to have unions and have everybody over there? Those unions will invade you next. So your practices can no longer happen. We're seeing this, and this has been a blessing and a curse, the ABK deal. We have seen underhanded table deals. We have seen behind the scenes emails. We've seen talks. We've seen conversations. This has put a spotlight on Sony as a whole. Sony as a whole is not the darling you thought she was. She is not the innocent individual that you thought they were. They are actually more conniving, more cutthroat, and more sinister than you thought Microsoft was. This isn't about how much you care about Spider-Man or God of War. At this point right now, these are real people that are making these games. And if you said that you're about the developers and you buy games, well, then you need to stand on the side of the developers who got an email while you're in the same building and your key card no longer works. I saw one lady, she has a mortgage due.
Yeah. I've seen some pretty egregious things, like heartbreaking things. Like people like, I don't know. One guy wrote, I don't know what else. I don't know what to do.
That
like,
part breaks my heart.
Of course it does. Listen, folks, this is where the human element should come into the play on every conversation. I don't care what platform you proudly support. When you see this kind of egregious behavior, you cannot support these companies. I'm sorry. And now, Bungie and Sony, they're doing it all wrong. Look, real quick, King, I'm going to let you continue, but I haven't had a chance. The other night, I do what I normally do when I can't sleep. I'll get up. Mrs. Boom is sleeping. I'll get up. I'll sometimes play. But I wanted to put words onto a page. And so I said this. I tell everyone this all the time. I do my best writing when I'm alone in the dark in front of my computer, and the only thing that's lit is the computer and me. That's it, right? And I don't mean lit like I'm smoking. I don't even drink. Let me clear that up.
Boom doesn't engage in anything.
No, I'm very boring. Sorry, I was a police officer. You just can't do those things. But King, I have a list here, and I don't know if I had a chance to even read this list verbatim. But this is the disarray that Sony is in. You add Bungie and Fire Sprite and Naughty Dog and what happened yesterday to this list. It is astounding that this company is not filing for Chapter 11. Check this out, King. Now, in front of me is this list I made. Okay, this is PlayStation in 2023. This isn't going back 4 years or 3 years. This is 10 months, or now the start of the 11th month for PlayStation in 2023, folks. PlayStation VR 2.0 failed. Jim Ryan gets fired. Connie Booth fired. Her whole team walks off the job. PlayStation raises PlayStation Plus by $40 and gives no day and date, nothing. The only one single player game that they have for the entire year is Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man is great, but it's one game. PlayStation Studios turned into a gas game machine. Now they have to reverse course. How long is that going to take? 12 months? 24 months, 36 months, right?
5 years.
Roadmap, King, for 2024 and beyond. After 3 years in development, The Last of Us 2 faction is canceled. PlayStation 5 handheld, DOA before it's even released. Finally, and PlayStation Slim, not only is it ugly, they give you a paper clip to hold up your near $600 device, which went up by $50 for the slimmed down version with no disk drive. So they cut cost, but they added $50 to it. They give you a paper clip, and then they want to charge you $30 for the additional dollars for the vertical stand. And of course, we have learned that after 2 years of hiatus, meaning that Sony was too good to show up to any of these shows, their 2 shows, King, in 2023 are nothing short of garbage. That, folks, is your PlayStation. I mean, now, King.
People fail to realize I've been documenting the downfall of this Roman Empire, which I call Sony, for a minute. People forget what happened to Ben Studios. I don't forget. I never forget. Ben Studios got shut down and became a support studio. Ben Studios sold 2 million copies of what was that game?
Days Gone.
Days Gone.
Mm-hmm.
Horizon sold 2 million copies of Horizon Zero Dawn, was lauded as the next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the difference? Right? You have to look at the hypocrisy that was going on. I noticed there was disarray starting from the leadership. The moment that Jim took seat, Sean Layden had a different philosophy, creative. That's how you got stuff like Concrete Genie. This is the reason why you got Spider-Man. This is the reason why you got stuff like Days Gone. This is the reason why you got a lot of titles that was there, that was in the creative process of what we come to love and know at Sony. The visionary, Sean Layden, was a masterful dude, but walked him out the building, key card don't work. What?
Escorted by security,
yes.
By the way.
Then the next day, they raised the price on PlayStation Now, or they cut the price or raised the price, something they did. And then they merged the two. What you guys are starting to say, and this is for you Twitter dudes, for you Sony dudes, and I want y'all to grow up now. Today's the day you're going to have to grow up. Today is the day. You're going to have to grow up, put on your grown man pants, your grown lady panties, and you got to look Sony directly in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You told us that you wanted us to demand more from Microsoft, and we did. Microsoft raised the price of the Series S a couple of days ago. We all stood up and said,
No. No, that's not
You're
good.
not going to do that. That's not going to
Right.
happen. And they reverse course. They reverse course. They raise the price on a couple of things. You're not going to do that. Sony, y'all was claiming that Sony owns Bungie. Y'all said that was the black eye to Microsoft because those are the people that made Halo. And ha ha ha. Okay. Now, Sony owns Bungie. Don't sit there and say this is a Bungie decision, has nothing to do with Sony. This is the reason why I'm going to go pick up a PlayStation Slim. This is Bungie on their own. You can't have it both ways. Either you with the developer like you say, and this is the reason why you purchase games and you don't want them day and date in a service, or you're not. And you're fugazi and you're lying.
Mm-hmm.
What I want you to do, if this is true, I really want y'all to back it with your dollars. The only way Sony feels this is if you hurt them on Black Friday, if you hurt them on these milestone days, and you're saying, King, as an Xbox dude, you want that to happen. No, I did not want Bungie to do this. I'm a Destiny player. I haven't played Destiny in a long time because I fell in love with Fortnite and what Fortnite does. And I started playing Destiny, and it started becoming very samey. And then the problems arose when they went to Sony. And I said, the quality is dipping. Something is going on here. And then I started doing my research and realized that they were put in charge of all the games of service to watch and monitor. This is why Marathon has been delayed.
Yep.
Excuse me. This is why Final Shape has been delayed. You cannot put the new guy in charge of your existing studios and don't think it's not going to be tension there. There's going to be tension. There's going to be resentment. There's going to be animosity. There's going to be pettiness. There's stuff wasn't getting done. Out of what reason? This is not the Sony that we've come to know. This is not under Jack Trenton's leadership. We have not seen this under Sean Layden's leadership. We've seen this under Jim. This is Jim's leadership. Jim has destroyed Rome the same way Caesar has. This is it. He is your Caesar. Rome is burning.
Yep.
You will not recover. See, Boom said 12 months, 8 months to recover. These games have been in the development for 3-4 years close now. Some of these games were close. 2 games got canceled. Whatchamacallit got put on ice. Factions got put on ice.
Factions 2 is definitely that's canceled. Yeah.
You saying to yourself, do you have 5 years in you? Does Sony have 5 years to give you remasters of the existing stuff? Is it possible for that to happen? Because if it's possible for that to happen, then that means that you're going to keep buying the same stuff. The Horizon package, you don't know about that? Let's not act like we don't know the stuff is coming. Let's not act like Ragnarok and the other game that they're going to put out, they're not going to turn around and package it all together and sell it to you at a later date. Or they're going to do that with the Spider-Man trilogy. Don't act like they're not going to do that.
Dude, they pulled Spider-Man 2018 from their service to sell it to you again, dude. Think about that, folks. I mean, again, think about that. They took a first-party game out of their first-party service so they can sell you a triple pack. That's your Sony, folks. I don't know, man.
You gotta. This is where I go about. Why not support? You could support Ragnarok for years. You could support Spider-Man 2 for years. You just don't charge people full price for the game. I mean, it's not that hard to do. We've seen it on, people will pay extra money to have early access to Xbox, and it's a choice. I still get it in Game Pass. I can wait. It's okay. Yeah. You get an Ultimate. You pay a bunch of extra money, but hey, I could still have it in Game Pass. They allow this choice. Why do you think games sell even if they're in Game Pass? These are strategic thought processes that don't seem to be anti-consumer. I'm sorry. Like, when you're given that choice, you can choose to or not to.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And these are things that Sony forgets, like allowing a consumer, allowing these like, imagine some of these devs like, hey, you could come work on this instead, or at least have this out instead of just being like, nah, you're gone. Like, these are things that Microsoft has done. King said it before. You know what I'm saying? Like, we look at them and I mean, how long have I played PlayStation games? How long have I been screaming for a SOCOM? You want to make a remake or remake that game, okay, for the new audience? You know, your entire service went down when SOCOM 4 came out, and you just let it die. You just let it die. And
Yeah.
it's sad. And we look at Sony now, and it almost feels like they're a shell of themselves. Remember marketing and all this stuff we used to talk about? We used to give Sony so much credit. And it's like Jim, like, he went so hard on this ABK deal that it has put them in flux of not knowing what their direction is. What is their direction right now? I don't know. And that's bad for a company. You know what I mean? That's not good.
Yeah, well, listen, folks. This is only meant to be like an hour show. I do want to just add some more context to it. We'll get a final thought from both King David and Crispy. Paul Tassi had additional information that I want to read, and I think it's incredibly relevant. And this is where, even though Sony is the owner, Bungie ultimately is the one responsible for doing the heinous acts against their former employees. This is what Paul Tassi had to say. Additionally, this may be a part of a wider cost-cutting development at Sony in multiple areas. But as an independent entity who gets cut, the timing and the terms as above are Bungie's decision. And he adds to this, the decisions of who were laid off came directly from Bungie. This, even if Sony wanted cost-cutting, they were not coming in and saying, fire Salvatore, he's too expensive. And Sony is not replacing people with their own at Bungie. So ultimately, the composer, one of the most horrific composers in gaming that had been with Bungie and 343, is now no longer there. And why? I don't know. Was he making too much money? Well, if he's the guy that's making all of your music for your game, yeah, I would imagine he's probably making a lot of money. King, on the way out the door, before we get to your outros, what does this ultimately look like when you have ABK closing for Xbox? They're hitting on all cylinders. They have released a ton of first-party bangers. Next year looks like it's going to hit, and it's going to hit even bigger with the single-player games like Hellblade and Avowed and potentially Clockwork Revolution, on top of the Xbox Game Pass deals. I gotta tell you, I don't want to sound like an alarmist here, but I think it's curtains for PlayStation if they release even only one game next year. And the two games that we know are coming, you started to say it, King, is Horizon Zero Dawn remake for the PS5 and The Last of Us 2 remake for the PlayStation 5. Are we kidding me? Is that what 2024 looks like for Sony?
Yeah.
Wow.
Microsoft is ending the year strong with a first party release called Modern Warfare 3.
Indeed they are.
And Sony is hold up the fight, y'all. Push the boxes, sell those consoles. That's right, get that name out there, because when you boot it up, it's gonna say Microsoft Studios, and I can't wait for that. But on a real, this is the end of an empire.
Yep.
And you watched it crumble from within. All this stuff could have been avoided. Everything that's happening here it's completely avoidable. You know, it's stuff that's blatantly obvious for you to do, but when the fan base is so blinded and makes so many excuses for the golden child, that child will never learn how to stand sufficiently on their own. This will continue to happen, and this is systemic, and the virus is running straight through Sony from the top down, and it's permeating. Y'all getting a chance to see it. Now, I do feel for a lot of the people that has that Sony nostalgia, and it's just not going to be there no more. It sucks that it's happening this way. And I know people are saying, man, King, what are you talking about? Spider-Man was fantastic. Okay. I am an alarmist. Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2018 did not release in the state of Spider-Man 2023.
Yeah.
You have to look at what's going on. How they tried to gouge the public with Gran Turismo. How Horizon Forbidden West was a buggy mess. I remember Boom stopped playing it until they updated the patches on the game at a later date. This stuff is becoming more commonplace. It is becoming more of a problem. And instead of you guys holding their feet to the fire and being vocal, you're too busy on Twitter worrying about Xbox. They won't be able to recover if you continue to support their behavior.
Yep.
I am so happy that I got on the show today with Crispy Bomb and Boom to talk about this stuff. And finally, this stuff is coming to light. It's to a point where you can no longer run from the problem. You must confront this problem. And the problem is actually at Sony themselves.
Good stuff, man. Listen, we'll get to the outros in a second. Crispy Bomb, what are your final thoughts on this?
I just want to go back to what King's saying, like, dude, like, and this goes for people, like, I get that you're just typing words, but when you're laughing at the fact that, yeah, maybe some of us were right, that's not a laugh fest. That's not what we're here for. We're here to, we drop our bars and we say what we think is going to happen or could possibly happen. And it's happening right in front of my eyes. And I think all three of us have said some type of thing like this for years now. And all we get is Xbox don't do this and Xbox don't do that. And we're really just sitting here like, Sony, what are you doing?
Yep.
What are you doing? Like, this is not, I mean, I grew up when Microsoft was the big bad wolf, when Bill Gates was still in charge of it. And now they're like, oh, we're this beautiful teddy bear and come hug us. and if people can laugh at that, which, I mean, Boom's laughing right now, but I mean, really, the amount of work they put in and the amount that I already see, like, ABK employees, like, man, this is just, I was not expecting this.
Yeah,
Type
I don't think anybody
tweets
was.
and stuff like that. Like they, and yes, there might be layoffs at some point. I mean, Microsoft is they're no angel. Okay, but I don't hear these type of gigantic stories. We've had, inklings, but then you'd have the actual dev that got no, I actually left. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like, I just, they gave me an out and I left. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like, you look at a lot of things that have happened. And more recently, we've seen Microsoft take this incredible turn to say, the customer matters. What they think matters. These algorithms, all these other things they probably look at and say, you know what? If we do the right thing, and yes, it's going to be revenue at the end. If we do the right thing, we figured out that generally we are looked at favorably and we can continue to, we're going to screw up. I mean, every company does, but when we're going through almost a month of just the juggernaut that Sony is becoming less of itself, and watching them just implode and just destroy themselves, and also, like, your fans, they don't even acknowledge the fact that Sony has destroyed their own narratives. And it's one of those crazy things. Like, I love that, but then I hate this type of stuff. These are human beings. And yeah, I mean, I hope they stand on their 2 feet, but this is where you look at, like a company and you quit. I mean, why don't I just quit right away? That's what you did on me. You know what I mean? Like that's, oh, we're supposed to give a 2 weeks notice. Remember that? Yeah, well, why should I if you're going to do the same thing to me? I don't care if you're a corporation. I don't care if you're the head honcho. Well, you know what? I found a better job. I'm done. I mean, that's what I think we should do at this point. You know what I mean? Anybody that works for a company that's a big corporation, just quit. Don't give them 2 weeks. You know what? You don't want to work there. They don't like that. You don't want to work there. That's the way it should go at this point, because we're at a point where you see these big companies and they do whatever they want. And they slap you in the face, even though you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into that company, and they just laugh at you when you walk out the door. That's what it feels like.
A perfect example of what you're saying is what they did to Connie Booth. Connie Booth was responsible for 120 plus major releases for them, and she was fired. That came the way of David Jaffe, and that was ultimately confirmed. That just goes to show you who Sony is. But look, ladies and gentlemen, we had over 800 people here. A lot of names I never saw before, so that means that you're finding the channel for the first time. Folks, we are 398 subscribers away from 14K, and it would be pretty damn awesome to gain the growth. And again, shout out to the Iron Lords who crossed 20K earlier last month. Unbelievable, the work that you guys are doing over there. Addict, yourself, Cog, Sovereign. It's just every week, it's just one banger guest after another. And obviously, the writers that you have at lordsofgaming.net are nothing short than spectacular. Before I get to the outros, let me just catch up on the super chats. Been quite a few of them. We have Drawn TJ drops a very generous $2 super chat and says Call of Duty, Gears, and Diablo 4 need Forge mode. They absolutely do. Visual walkthrough. Welcome to the program, sir. He drops a very generous £2 super chat and says, do you think this would happen if Xbox got them? This is why Xbox did not buy Bungie, because according to documents, they spend more money than they make. Yep. And King said it. This was a panic buy. He was one of the first people to say this was a panic buy by Sony, and look where it got them. Raiden Blade drops a very generous £5 super chat and says Bungie was ordered by SIE to lay off staff. I don't believe it was from Bungie. Too many dismissals happening across SIE. Look at the statement from Pete. All bad. I mean, listen, they're owned by Sony. Was there behind the scenes conversation of, hey, you got to trim some fat here because you're spending too much and you're not making more? Maybe, probably. But like I said, I believe what Paul Tassi had to say, and I'm sure it was a joint decision ultimately. Rain G4 drops a very generous $2 super chat and says Sony is paying Bungie's child support bills. Oh no, the slander.
Oh boy.
Raiden Blade drops an additional £2 super chat and says it's funny, the silence from the hooved ones. Yeah, they've been been very, very, very subdued on Twitter. El Monte drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, remember when Scalebound was canceled, the pony said Xbox was done. They also said fire Phil Spencer. I remember that quite. Sensei Matrix. Sensei, welcome back, brother. Nice to see you in the chat. He drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Sony is going to sell Spider-Man 2 remaster for the PlayStation 5 Pro for $70. You know what's coming. It's unfortunate. Yeah, they'll add some new suits and they'll add the 120 frame mode or something like that and charge you $70. Don't buy it.
It does 120 frame mode now.
There is. Okay, so this will be 124 frames. They'll add 4 frames and charge you $70. Is that Sony? That's how they get you. Michael Mooney in the chat drops a very generous £5 super chat and says Sony as owners have the power to override Bungie if they disagree with their actions, and obviously they didn't. But King David, I would imagine that this is going to be your topic for Sunday's incredible Iron Lords podcast, which you should not miss. By all means, brother, sell the brand of the Iron Lords as you do, and also tell the people the best website in the business with some of the most pointed minds going for lordsofgaming.net, sir.
Oh, thank you, Boom, and thank you, Crispy Bomb, for having me on the show today. Um, First, I want to tell everybody Game Pass just had a great drop
Oh,
on this
dude.
Tuesday, and I told dudes Halloween. Microsoft was going to continue to put the boots on their neck all the way up to the whole month of Shocktober was fantastic.
Yep.
And you know, you go watch Jusant. Jusant is a great game. Go try it out. You know, it's
Very relaxing.
yes, it's
It is a
very.
very chill game.
If you like Call of the Wild or whatever that's called, the VR game, the for the PlayStation VR, they have climbing segments. Well, this
Mhm.
game is all about that. And my wife walked in and she said, "Oh, you're playing a game that we played in VR." I said, "No, no, no." She said, "Oh, well, I thought this was like the regular version of it." So that gave her that feeling, and she's automatically able to see it, and it came across good. The game is very good, and then I saw it
It's
at one
visually
of the shows.
stunning, dude.
Beautiful, beautiful game. Even on the Series S, it looks fantastic. Not saying like the Series S is a problem. But you guys can catch me on Iron Lords Podcast Sunday at 1 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. Also, lordsofgaming.net. Now, if you go to our Patreon, on our Patreon, we talk about movies, anime, we do death battles, we talk about video games, comic books, all types of things. So go check out our Patreon and go see if there's something that's on there that you like, because we have R&R with the Lords, where Attic and myself talk about stuff, and myself and Ty talk about stuff. It's a fun little thing that we do. I'm also in the works of doing some other big stuff with KOS, Combat Talk with the King, and
Mhm.
also King's Corner. I'm going to be doing stuff with that. That's going to be on a separate channel, so you'll get all that information a little bit later on. This has been fun. It's been fun just hanging out with you guys, but it's not fun talking about individuals that don't know how to navigate through these financial times that we live in at this moment. We are in a huge recession, individuals. I want y'all to notice we are in a huge recession. We can go to the store, and normally you pay $300 a month for groceries for your household, and that same amount of groceries that you purchase is either doubled or tripled in price for the same products, and your money has not doubled and tripled. We are in a huge recession. Holiday times is the worst times for people in depression. It's the highest rate of suicide. I
Indeed.
want you to constantly look after your loved ones, check on people during these period of times, because they may have a smile on their face and you may not know what's going on, but please check on your friends, check on your family, and ultimately on Twitter, please be kind and respectful for what's going on at the moment. These are not the developers' issues. They're not their fault. They went with a company that gave them assurances that they would be retained, and those assurances was not upheld from the parent company down to the minor company. And I ultimately feel sorry for them.
Yeah, to add to King's thing, folks. I'm a big fan of Katie Babs. I don't know if you know who she is. She is on Sirius, and she's on the channel that Mrs. Boom and I listen to is Octane, Soul Heavy Metal. That's what we listen to, and she consistently and almost every day, without missing a day, goes and says, "Listen, if you're having trouble, if you're having that you need to speak to somebody, simple number, folks, 988. It is the suicide hotline. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, even on holidays. It's easy to remember. You can be anonymous. Remember that, super easy, 988. If you are struggling with your mental health and you feel like you just don't have the will to move on, I can guarantee you there's going to be a reason that someone on the other end of that phone is going to say and give you It's going to change your mind. So remember that, folks. 988 King. Thank you so much for that incredible information. Crispy Bomb, let's get you on out of here, folks. Crispy Bomb, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's exclusive to Double Barrel Gaming. I'm very happy to say that because, obviously that's awesome. Crispy Bomb, sell your brand, brother. Where could people reach out to you, potentially strike up a conversation on social media? And even though you're not going to be here this Friday, we're here today and we appreciate it. Brother, love you. Thank you so much for being here. Talk about it.
The life of being a manager. King, sir, been too long. General, sir, advance the line. Let's go. At Chris Bob on Twitter, Chris Bob 28 Xbox Live, and yes, I will be back next week on Breakfast with Boom.
Yep.
And other than that, like happens all the time, you may find me on anything with Double Barrel Gaming. Let's go.
Appreciate it very much. And of course, a big thank you to all the generosity that was shown today. Incredible. And of course, like I said, if you were someone that received one of the channel memberships that came the way, 40 of them, man, who not only joined himself, he donated 40 Double Barrel Gaming memberships. That's insane. Please, by all means, next time you're in the chat, give this man a thank you, man or woman for that matter, a thank you. It'd be greatly appreciated. And again, obviously, we can't do the big giveaways that we do without this kind of support. And obviously, we're going to give away $500 this Friday morning. And all you got to do to win is be in the chat. Now, if you are a channel member, the first 5 prizes will go to channel members. And that is picked through an automatic picker that StreamYards has. I'm going to give you a hashtag. You're going to throw it in the chat. And the picker is going to do its job. And the second half, the second 5 winners will be anyone that is currently in the chat with that hashtag. And again, we can't do this without the support of the channel memberships as well as the super chat. So a big thank you for that. And of course, I'm going to close out the show, folks, with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day will be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, Craig, I can guarantee you you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends.